Hello everyone, it is I, the Witch of Paint. Just before we start, I am still recovering from a cold, so if my voice is a bit cranky and stuff, you'll know why. Today we will test out the postcard from Clairefontaine that I had briefly shown in the first part of this art supply testing series. It is made of 100% cellulose and the size of the paper is 10.5 by 21 centimeters and it weighs 300 grams per meter squared, which is pretty good for a watercolor paper. Like, that's usually what you kind of want. Also, it only comes with 10 postcards, which is a little sad because the size is so unusual for a postcard and I want more of this size card, just because it's fun. I don't actually need more postcards, but I want more. It's become a weird thing that I like. I like painting postcards. So, minus points for the few cards you get, but plus size for the unusual postcard size. Although the fact that it was a different size did cause me some issues with finding a reference, as I don't usually take a lot of panorama pictures with my camera, and the postcard size is more suited to a little bit of a panorama picture. Not a long one, but still it made me struggle to find something that would work with the size without giving me a huge headache. I landed on a sunset from last year. I really need more panorama pictures, I swear. Now on to how it acts when being painted on. For the base layers, I chose to use my Winsor Newton watercolour sky palette, which comes with the colours lemon yellow hue, cadmium red hue, rose madder hue, ultramarine, cerulean blue hue, indigo, Payne's grey and white. There's a lot of hues in there, I'm not sure why. Suppose it's because it's the student series. First, I wanted to see how much the paper would buckle when I applied lots of water for a layer of, wet in wet painting. Of course it did buckle, all paper does when it gets wet, but it didn't really affect the direction the paint was flowing all that much. At least not with how I was applying it to the page. Overall, I felt like I had some pretty good control over where the paint was going, and the texture of the paper allowed the paint to spread nice and evenly pretty much, which I kind of like as well. The colours may have mixed and intermingled a little, but it was more in a way that I kind of wanted it to mix rather than being something I didn't want to have at all. When I started the second layer, it didn't seem like the paper was causing the paint to pool in one particular place either, which is nice. I had decided to paint a sunset because it lets me play around with the colours and see how they look on the paper and just get a lot of different things in there, like lights, darks, blues, midtones, all that jazz. Eventually I stopped paying attention to the paper though and just had some fun with the paints. I must say though, the clouds are not looking quite so great. I suppose, if you look at how clouds should look. I should practice painting clouds this year too. It was a little hard for me to define it as something less than one huge cloud or a blob, since the reference was many tiny clouds. It kind of bugs me, but even as one big cloud it looks okay, so I'm not too upset about it not looking like the reference image. Because either way, the colours look great, going from yellow on the right-hand side to a beautiful mix of pinks and oranges and purples that are on the left-hand side of the painting. I wanted the foreground to be rather dark, even if in reality it probably never looked like that. My phone camera just refuses to light the scene properly. It was either a really dark sky and a very bright foreground, or a very bright sky and a very dark foreground, and I really don't mind it that much with my phone camera. It's just kind of sometimes wish it would do it differently and be more accurate, but it's a phone camera, what am I gonna do? So at first I used some indigo to map out the hills in the background, having it go into a dark green which I had mixed with the lemon yellow, and also added a little bit of Payne's grey and more indigo. But after that I thought it would probably never go dark enough, at least not with watercolours, and so I brought out my gouache palette. At which point really none of the whole paper buckling and stuff doesn't really matter much, but I wanted to have some proper dark foreground so that the sky can be the focus. Legit reason to use gouache on a watercolour postcard, so naturally I used the gouache paints in the sky as well to try and make the clouds look better? Ish. You be the judge of how well I was doing with messing around with gouache. I'm getting somewhere with it in the end. It just doesn't necessarily end up looking quite the way that I wanted it to at the start, which is just the way things are for artists, I suppose. So anyways, right after I had started the script for this video, I got sick, leaving my brain to think about things that during the time I was sick for, I had zero energy to research. So I ended up having to rush the research because I got curious. But one of those questions that my brain randomly started to think about was, why are postcards a thing? Who came up with the idea of slapping some image on a card, writing a little message and sending it to somebody they knew? At what point did it become a thing to brag about the place you last went to on your last holiday? Because, let's face it, that is what a lot of postcards are for. Sending your friends a postcard of a cool place you have been to on your latest holiday. Well, in my families, we tend to move to the place we'd like to have a holiday at, or at least it feels that way sometimes. So we haven't really had, the need to send postcards of places we've been to. But I have received postcards, of course. I'm pretty sure everyone does at some point in their lifetime. And I have sent postcards too, with pictures that I painted myself, because I'm an artist and I will do things myself, okay? I will decide what the subject of my postcards is, which is partially also the reason why I keep buying postcards like this. Because the idea of them is just fun, and thinking of making art that you are going to send away. That's kind of getting me used to giving away art, you know? And since I currently live in Ireland, those subjects for the postcards have become places in Ireland that I have seen, like you saw with the Donegal Castle video, which was a postcard. Sorry, friend who got sent a postcard about a castle where 170 men died at, probably. So, anyways, how did postcards come to be? Well, in general, picture cards have been posted since postal services became a thing, because humans like sending pictures of things to each other. Whether that be a place or cats, who knows? I don't know. I think the first postcard actually that I made was of a cat. Anyways, apparently one of the first postal picture cards was sent by Theodore Hook, who was a writer and sent the picture card to himself as a practical joke on the postal service. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that was, but there's a link down below to the Wikipedia article that I quickly scanned, which is probably not enough research for this, but I don't have the energy to do more research for this at the moment. I'm very sick. Well, not very sick, but still, my brain is too tired to handle this. Anyways, in 1865, Heinrich von Stephan in Prussia proposed that a card with one side for address and the other for a brief message could be fun and put into a business. He was denied because they didn't think people would put their private messages out there for everybody to read. Who does that? That's so weird. Jokes on them, 4 years later, an Austria-Hungary post office decided, heck yeah, we want this, and accepted the idea. And in the first 3 months, they sent a total of 3 million of these these postcards where you've got a message on one side and then the address on the back. And I think for the longest time, it was not permitted to write a message on the back of a card, you always had to write it on the front. And then, so when the thing came in with pictures on the front, they always left a little space for you to write your little message. Until eventually they decided to split the back into one space for the address and then a space for a message on the left, like postcards are today. But let's get back to the Austria-Hungary post office selling 3 million postcards in 3 months. It really looks like people don't really care about the privacy of their messages sometimes. I mean, which is kind of weird, but okay. Then, thanks to the Franco-Prussian War breaking out, the North German Confederation decided that letting soldiers send cards home cheaply would be a nice thing to do for the soldiers and their families. And also, to get money a little bit. Naturally, the idea spread. What isn't there to like about a small, inexpensive piece of cardboard that you can send to your friends and family for quite cheap and let them know that, I'm doing okay, don't worry about me, or I got sick, or whatever people put on postcards. The first known, proper postcard that had a picture printed on it is from France, created in 1870 at Camp Conly by Léo Besnardeau. I tried. Okay. It's quite a name to pronounce. The card had a lithographed design, and I am now going to briefly look into what that means. So it works by sort of putting a design on a stone through a complicated chemical process and then pressing it on a piece of paper. Actually, you apply ink first, obviously. It's like you put the design on the stone, put on some ink, and then you press on a piece of paper, and voila! You've got a design on a postcard that you can print as many times as you would like. Which I did put quite short and not very scientifically. There's a very cool explanation of it in the third link in the description. It's a lot cooler than I made it sound, I swear. But would you look at it? There's a German guy credited with being the inventor of the illustrated postcard, also in 1870. August Schwarz sent one with a man and a cannon depicted on it to someone just to symbolize that there was a war coming. How charming. Well, since then, postcards have steadily been used more and more for either sending pictures or for the purpose of advertising things, because postcards are quick, easy and accessible, and also I'm pretty sure all those holiday postcards are literally just to advertise the place you have been to your friends and family. Just throwing that out there. Although, during me reading the Wikipedia article on postcards, I also stumbled across the government of the UK that tried to get rid of saucy postcards in 1950-ish, because it was supposedly corrupted the morals in the UK. Saucy postcards. I'm sorry, don't you have better things to worry about, government of the UK in the 1950s? I'm just asking. But one of the people responsible for these saucy postcards was Donald McGill, and the government of course tried to crack down on his postcard designs. I did not realise that there was this much drama surrounding postcards, but I suppose it's bound to happen considering that people are going to be people and people are going to be putting weird things on postcards and sending it to each other. But I suppose really you should maybe be a bit more considerate with what you put on postcards. Just, they're not in envelopes, so people are going to see them. They're going to pick them up and look at them. Now, please, just because you now know that saucy postcards exist, don't just look them up. Who knows what people were sending around? Anyways, there's a lot more to read about postcards. Personally, the 6-page PDF was quite informative for me, and I did read through all of it, so if, like me, you like looking into the history of random things, go ahead, take a look. It'll be worth it, I swear. Also, it's mostly centered around the US, and I had to look up the Wikipedia article just to get a look at other areas that are not the US. So back to the postcard, which is close to being done now. I did, in the end, go through my procedure of wetting the back in hopes of it lying flatter in the end. I returned to find a part of the gouache paint wet again, so I am not sure what happened there. But it did dry again eventually, so it can't have been that bad, right? Right. So in short, I finished the postcard with a little bit of struggling and also placing the signature in the place where the tape was without exactly realising it. And so when I peeled away the tape, I was like, really now? That's what you're gonna do? Sure. Okay. We're being a bit dumb today. Well, I had it flattened in my usual way, and I gotta say, it's not quite as flat as it could be. Still rather wobbly, so slight minus points for that, but it's still a fun size, so I'm not gonna complain. Okay, so in conclusion, I kind of like these new postcards. They have a nice texture and let the paints work quite nicely, and I had a lot of fun painting them, which is kind of one of the most important things about postcards that are meant for being painted on. If you ask me, that is the most important thing, really. The size is special, of this postcard in particular. The texture is nice, it handles the paint well, and it didn't make me struggle too much. The clouds caused all the struggling for me, to be fair. But the painting looks fine in the end. It's abstract and stuff, and sure. But it looks fine, so I have nothing too bad to say on the painting itself. I got the gist of the sky stuff, so yeah, it's all cool. I'm fine with it. And I can't wait to add this block of postcards onto my, collection of postcards for watercolor painting. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this week's postcard video. I certainly did. It was quite fun jumping down the rabbit hole of why are postcards? At least as much as my semi-congested brain could handle. I know there aren't that many resources down there, but, well, I was still recovering. What you gonna do about it? I am still recovering, actually. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment your favourite postcard design down below. For the time being, I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Hopefully, with a less tired brain. Bye! Well, look who's made it to the end of the video. Well done. Have some nice little outtakes to just sweeten the end of the video for you. Have fun. Hello everyone, it is I, Witch of Struggles. I don't like being sick. At least. So at first I used some indigo to map out the hills in the background, having it go into a dark green, which I had mixed with the lemon yellow and a little bit of the Payne's grey and indigo. I just said indigo twice in that sentence. And also I want more postcards.